posting on X saying Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table and to work fast to end the war. Now, he did not apologize to Trump, but he did say, in part, our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way it was supposed to be. It is regrettable that it happened this way. It is time to make things right. We would like future cooperation and communication to be constructive. Christian Whiton is a former State Department official and joins me now. Is Zelensky's statement the result of American pressure, specifically our pausing all U.S. military aid to Ukraine?
My guess is Zelensky's statement is completely insufficient. Its use of the passive voice, mistakes were made, something happened, we didn't like what happened, maybe something different will happen. That's very different than what President Trump specifically said he needs, which is an apology. And frankly, even if Zelensky were to apologize, I think you're at the point where there's too much water under the bridge. You look back at past situations. If you look in Vietnam, by the time that Diem was ousted early in the Kennedy administration, just to use an example of an ally that had disappointed the United States. We didn't oust him, but we knew that he was going to be ousted. We did nothing about it. I think Zelensky will probably have to leave power in order for there to be a good negotiating relationship between Washington and the Ukrainian government.
If Zelensky turned around with a groveling apology, do you think Trump would give him a second chance?
Yeah, I think so. The question is it sort of legitimate? Is it genuine? Zelensky going over, getting encouragement from Europeans. Is he really willing to accept not just a ceasefire, which the Russians don't want because they are picking up ground, something that's definitive, that actually settles where the battle lines are now and basically accepts a Ukraine that doesn't have a whole lot of military power, basically giving in a lot to what Russia wanted going into this war. And Zelensky, I would be very surprised if he's willing to acquiesce to that.
Next one, Christian. Vice President J.D. Vance told Hannity that Europe is not being realistic about the war in Ukraine. Watch.
I think our European friends, frankly, are being they're doing a disservice to the Ukrainians because their own populations are saying, we're not going to fund this war indefinitely. Zelensky, he goes to Europe, and a lot of our European friends puff him up. They say, you're a freedom fighter. You need to keep fighting forever. Well, fighting forever with what? With whose money, with whose ammunition, and with whose lives? The president is actually taking a much more realistic perspective and saying, this can't go on forever. We can't fund this thing forever. The Ukrainians can't fight forever. So let's bring this thing to a peaceful settlement.
All right, Christian, is Europe getting in the way of a potential peace deal?
Yes, it is. I think the vice president is right. Right after that meeting between Zelensky and Trump, Zelensky was brought over to Europe, to the UK, met with a bunch of European leaders, actually got a private audience for an hour with King Charles, very unusual, and was sort of told, don't worry about it, things are great, we're behind you, and gee, maybe we'll put together a European army and we'll pick up the slack. Well, they've been talking about that for 3 years now. The worst are probably the Germans, who said, we're going to really increase our defense spending, we're going to get serious, we're going to meet that 2% plus GDP criteria. We're going to spend $100 billion extra, and none of that has actually happened. At least the Brits do meet their sort of GDP criteria of spending, but none of these countries can really make up for the United States. Canada said, oh, well, maybe we'll send troops as part of a security agreement. I mean, that's a joke, and the Russians realize it is. So I think they are giving a false sense of encouragement, and Zelensky has sort of surrounded himself, eliminated the opposition, and is listening to these voices of encouragement that are somewhat reckless.
All right, we hear you, Christian Whiton. Thanks for being on the show this morning.